Good afternoon, good evening. Hey Manav, how you doing, man? Hey, how is everyone doing? I'm gonna let this room warm up a little before we get our fellow guest in here. Just again, as a reminder, we've got our my good friend Aditya joining us today. Absolute, the guy for digital marketing. He's doing a master's at the moment at King's. So it's an exciting opportunity to ask questions, to join in the live, and just pick out his brains. Honestly, you've got him here. We're going to be on this live for around 30, 40 minutes. So you've got him here, and I'm really excited to bring him on. So I'm going to invite him in a second now. I'll find him. Here we go. And have him on here soon. He should be joining us.
Oh yes, I'm
Hey,
in. Hey Kiki,
good.
hi.
How you doing, buddy? Here's the man.
Good, good. How are you?
I'm very well, man. Very. You know what? It's Friday. It's been a good week. It's been productive, so I can't complain. Honestly, it's been good, and it's been a great start to the year. If I'm honest, it's been exciting. So yeah. How's your day been today?
Good. I'm super excited for this session. I would say just a Friday.
Definitely.
It's like a Friday because actually, yes, you're right.
Right.
This week was very productive indeed. But yeah, I'm so happy to see you. It's like
Yeah.
we were discussing about the session yesterday, and
Mm.
hang on, I'm in. I'm in for this.
Love it, man. Honestly, like I said to you before, your energy and your wisdom, your experience as well. And I said to you when I was doing starting these lives, one of the first people that came to my mind was like, I need to get Vidya on, and we need to bless this audience with your experience, your knowledge, and everything, man. So thank you. I really appreciate you coming on, man. Honestly, so I'm excited for this just as much as you are, I'm sure.
Thank you, man. Honestly, it's like I was watching your sessions before, and I think it was just like I saw Yaya's session, and it was so inspiring. Journeys out here regarding these conversations about branding, marketing is just it's something that you all can relate with. It's
Definitely.
something that sticks with you, and I think these conversations are more than necessary these days because you want to speak about it. You have so much information going out there, and I think
Yeah.
you and I, when we go live with the conversation, it just never stops. So
No,
I think people are
exactly.
gonna see that today.
Well, exactly. I remember, and this is just the warm up sort of talks. But I remember when we first met, you came into the office, and we just chat there for hours, and we were like, "Man, we need to go get lunch." Like it was like 4 or 5 hours gone, and we still spoke
We
over
still didn't
lunch,
stop. Yeah, that's the point.
even on the way. No, it's great. It's really is. So, look, Aditya, thank you again. Just thank you again for your time, and really looking forward to this. But what I wanted to get started with first and foremost is obviously introducing you. I've obviously given you hype, and I've spoken about my stories and stuff. But from the person himself, tell us, who is Aditya? What's your background? Where have you come from? And what are you up to at the moment? Just give us an intro.
So I would say I'm a part-time meme, a full-time crazy because
I
I,
love
I
it.
I love the hilarious stuff around marketing, man. I just like I've been channelized by I don't know. Marketing for me is like it's adrenaline. It's something which
Mm,
I enjoy on a daily basis. I wake up to it, I sleep on it, and um, I'm just like I'm a student right now. I worked in the marketing field for like 3.5 years, but after that I was like, let's go back to the books because the world's changing, and I'm currently at King's
mm,
College London. Previously, I
yep.
was studying at Micah, and
Mm,
before that, I was in a commerce and financial background, which was mainly in my undergrad. So I've been
mm,
involved with agencies for a while. I've worked with the fintech side, and I've mainly loved working with F&Bs in the past. But like the world is changing, and I think after the pandemic, there are a lot of
mm,
questions that need to be answered about how brands are functioning, how marketing is going, what's the future, and of course, metaverse. It's something is out of new topic. We were talking about that yesterday.
mm,
Sustainability is a big thing. It's something which is there's so much information that you can process, and with the passion that, a person like me has, I feel like I want to do more. I want to find out
Mm.
more answers in this space. So it's just it grows every day, and I would say I will continue to learn. But this field is addictive. I mean, you and I can feel that. It's like when you can't have conversations about this, you won't stop. You won't stop till you
Yeah.
have answers, and that's when somebody has to tell you to stop. That's it.
Yeah. So the new Aditya is just like I would just like similar to me is the new learning is a non-stopping continuous growth. Tell me about where you come from. I know that you obviously you said you mentioned that you're at King's, but what was your sort of way into this whole industry? How did that introduction happen? And yeah, tell me a bit more about that, and I'm sure the audience want to hear that as well.
Awesome. That's something which that's pretty interesting because I had an inclination towards graphic design while I was studying
Mm.
finance in my
Okay.
undergrad. I mean, I like numbers, but I was like, I need to design something, and I need to learn how to use Photoshop. And I learned Photoshop by myself. I was not like trained or anything. And
Yeah.
I started out designing album art. Then I started getting into designing merchandise. Like
Mhm.
preset pieces like mugs and everything. And you put a nice design on it and put it on maybe Amazon or maybe Flipkart. Because I'm from India. I'm from New Delhi in India, and I came to London 6 months back almost now. So
Mm.
it's like design got me to thinking that it's a step ahead. You want to know how you sell it.
Yeah.
How what you could do when you let people know what you're creating. And that's
Mm.
where brands come in, because the brands create a lot of stuff. Brands are creators themselves, and there's so many stories about around these things that it drives you to know more. That's what I got into marketing, and I worked in a fintech called Simple when I was in I think my after completing my graduation, and then it just got deeper into the inside that you want to learn how things work in the back end. You want to learn how to
Mm.
influence people. You want to learn how to help them understand the experience of how to use a brand. And it's something which gets you to explore more. I worked with agencies. I worked with around more than 45, 50 F&B brands. And that's where, I had a hard stop because I started from design, but I got into selling stuff. And then
Yeah.
the only thing that actually was my big power push, and is still today, is creativity. Because
Mm.
when I see a design, when I go to a store, maybe if I'm in Holborn or anywhere, I just want to walk into a store and I want to see some good art, some good
Mm.
stuff. And it's like it's a powering element that keeps you to discovering more about marketing, and maybe digital marketing, maybe branding. And it's something that I feel like creativity has pulled me towards more of an analytical end, and then it's got me to places where I didn't know I could be, and it still
Mm.
is. I
Mm.
mean,
Yeah.
I'm at that stage where in like this week on Tuesday I had a class in marketing, and I was like, I never knew I'm going to study this. So
Mm.
it's
Yeah.
it's like it's like
Wow.
you're chasing the horizon, and since the last, I think, almost 7 years now, I've been chasing that horizon, and it never stops. It just goes on,
Mm.
and you never know what you explore. And here I am sitting with you right now, and it's just like doing IGTV sessions that you probably thought you might do like somewhere down the line, but it's fun. It's fun, you're driven into it, and it's a new process, new thing every 24 hours. So for
Yeah.
me, that's
No,
amazing.
it's really really good, and I think if you one point that I want to sort of elaborate on there as well is especially when you sort of start the route from creativity, right? I firmly believe that marketing, when it comes from an initial interest in just marketing and just the numbers and just like all the KPIs and stuff, versus someone who comes from a creative background, or at least has a creative mind state. Marketing is can be seen as two very different things. One can, in my belief and my experience, one is very sort of standstill. There's not much learning. You sort of become the master of what you are. But the creative one, the creator that sort of dives into marketing, is like, okay, what other sort of marketing, like neuromarketing? We spoke about this very briefly on our first meeting, and it just blows your mind away that those sort of concepts exist, and not only exist, they are part and parcel of our life right now. So it's really, really interesting that that you made that point. But that's really, really cool, man. And I think that again, one major thing that any creative, whether you're in brand, whether you're in marketing, is always to be able to understand the value of marketing. Because I've worked with loads of projects, and people will go as far as maybe saying, okay, they need this, they need a brand, basically, but then at the same time not sort of valuing what the value of marketing brings as well,
Exactly.
and having that understanding. So, and this is why we've got you on board here today, man.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And I actually resonate with you on this because it's like there was a point in my career where I felt like I need some time with myself to understand more about this before I get into a formal education on this. So what I
Yeah.
I, I remember like in 2020, right before the pandemic, I think 3 months before the pandemic, I started my own brand called the Brandtastic Company in
Hmm.
Delhi. And I think that was the whole buildup of when I had that zeal to learn more, because I think that's where we had more conversations. We met at the Future Pro group, and it just began from there, and it just went on because it's like you meet new people. I mean, when we all met in for the Future Pro meet in Canary Wharf in your office, that was
Yeah.
something that was sparking more conversations around. So, I mean,
Mm.
as a founder of a startup, or maybe someone
Mm.
who has built his own brand and is trying to evaluate that brand every day, there are more questions that you want answered by yourself. And then you feel that thing that if you can ask those questions to yourself, there are a lot of
Mm.
brands that might not know those questions, that
Yeah.
might never know what those questions are and what they mean to them. So
Yeah.
it's like a community that starts rising when you experience that yourself, and you yourself are the founder of Nine Designs, and I've seen your work, man. It's something which it helps people understand more about what they need to know, and that's
Hmm.
where it's bridging a big brand gap. I feel like it's
Yeah.
something, it's a gap of perceptions that has to be filled up because it's necessary. And at this point of time, we are going digital. We have already, have so many conversations about the metaverse, and everyone's everyone wants to know. They want to know what they're looking at. They want to know what they're
Mm.
talking about, and
Yeah.
that's where people like us have to step in and probably give answers because that's what the world is
Mm.
looking for. So
Yeah.
it stems out of a lot of questions, and I think at this point of time we need to ask the right questions, because if you don't ask the right questions, then you're at that spot where you feel like you know it. 10 people sitting in the same room might be listening to the same thing and perceiving the fact that you might be right when you might not be right. So it's like
Mm.
it's just that the expertise has to be narrowed down to the point where they need to understand what the right question is, and that's where the journey
Yeah.
starts.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Mind blown. Mind blown. The gems there. So 100%, man. Definitely asking the right question. I mean, look, before we get into the juice of this topic, which is talking about, where we both our both views on where brands are heading now, where they're sort of going towards. One thing I sort of wanted to touch on before that is where you are at the moment. So, you said you're at Kings. Let us know what is it that you're doing, and what are you getting involved in at Kings at the moment. That'd be great to know.
Awesome. So at King's, like this is my second post graduation because I did my first in digital marketing, the same topic in MICA, which is one of the top institutes in India.
Hmm.
When I got into King's, it's more of a research driven perspective in terms of how you understand strategy, how you understand communications, consumer behavior, analytics, and maybe all the levers, including the new side of marketing, which where we're hearing terms like biohacking and neuromarketing. We're all looking for hacks, but we want more validation in terms of what we're learning, right? So it's like you want more insight as to why you're doing something. Maybe, for example, it's when
Hmm.
you say,
Reason. Yeah.
yeah, when you say something like A/B testing, specifically on Facebook, you need more insight in terms of understanding what happens when you do A/B testing. What are the factors that you have to understand when you do A/B testing? And
Hmm.
there's a side where it's all automated, but you need to know the backend because you need to know the basis on which you're doing it. And I think when you come in terms to understand the implications of doing such activities, for example, Facebook ads, you need to know what you're presenting. and that's where there's this gap where people go by the norm as it says, but there's a gap in understanding what could actually mean for you. And
Hmm.
that's where research comes in, because that's where you have validation in terms of bridging the gap between what you know and what you could know. And that's where I think it's something which is that's my main forte in terms of understanding why I am doing something like this at King's. And I've been involved in many conversations. We've had good lecture sessions from people from Banana Republic. I remember last week we had a guest lecture from Anna Angelic, who was the chief brand
Hmm.
officer at Banana Republic, one of the
Yeah.
most reputed brands in America. And they went through a recent rebrand. And instead, like, apart from understanding it from just a branding perspective, it was a mixed hybrid perspective. I mean, that's why I think I use this word hybrid as a part of
Hmm.
my strategy practice, which is a hybrid digital marketing strategy practice, because it's becoming more dynamic in nature. It's something
Yeah.
which you need to know from all ends considered, based on what you feel is your expertise and what could be a part of that expertise, which you could explore in the later end, because you want to give more insight on what connects the dots. So, I
Hmm.
mean, it's like it's amazing. It's amazing how you see brands refresh. It's amazing how you see the backside of what's happening around brands, and a lot of theories written by researchers who um, have actually built models to prove all of this. So it's a new learning for me. I would not say that I'm pretty good at it, but once I explored this, it in the last probably 3 months has answered a lot of questions for me, which I never knew.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, like I said, asking the right questions, and I have moved to that point where I'm actually asking the right questions to myself, or maybe to people now.
Yeah.
So that's an improvement. I would say that's a level up for me.
Yeah. No, that's like again, we're going into a completely different sort of time. Like obviously digital is already completely taken over. The fears of going into the Web 3.0 NFTs and all this sort of space. We're already in a digital takeover right now, but like to the standpoint of brands and marketing more specifically in terms of what we're talking about, the amount of learning, the amount of specific niches that will be created even right now, but even in the next 2 or 3 years, it's just absolutely like, and just by having conversations with yourself and you talking about it, it's just absolutely like, you can't even comprehend it. So that term that you're using, hybrid digital marketer, right, is so fitting to what the industry is reflecting at the moment, right? So yeah, that's really cool, really really cool. So okay, what I want to do is I'm gonna ask you the question first before we get into it, and then we can have a discussion about this. So in in okay, let me ask you a direct question. What do you think? Obviously, given your experience now, you've been at Kings for quite a while. You've obviously explained your experience that you had with working with other brands as well. You've got a very good understanding of where brands are heading. Where we're heading, not only with brands but with also marketing as well. And basically, with those two things combined, how brand growth is going to sort of set out in the future. What do you think? Are the sort of changing trends or the things that are coming for regardless of what brand it is. So for brands in general, what is coming in the future? What do brands have to do to adapt, to change to all of these sort of things, all these things happening, basically, in your opinion?
Well, Kiki, I mean, what you asked is one of the questions that it is the right question. I mean, it's something that people want to know. I mean, what's next for
Mm,
them? I mean, that's the reason, like, why I'm here actually, because I felt like there's a lot that has changed in terms of consumption behavior, if I would say, in a very deep end, because um, when you have conversations around sustainability, you have conversations around experience. It's all changing. It's everything's changing for brands. Foundations might
mm,
be the same, but how you perceive brands and how customers are perceiving brands has gone. It's just jumped. It's just like exponentially jumped right now. So if I would want to go deeper on this, I would
mm.
rather say that when you use this term called pivoting to a digital platform,
Yep.
before brands actually wanted to pivot on a digital scale, customers were already there. They
Mm,
were pivoting faster than how brands could.
Yeah. Before, way before, but yeah.
Exactly. And
Mm.
I read this case study. I think when I started my course, there was this case study about with Jagdish Sheth, and it's a Harvard-based case-based study, and we were just going around the conversation as to what could be the right example to understand pivoting specifically for consumers. This is a consumer's perspective. Before I go to a brand, I
Mm.
want to talk about the consumer first because this is the main thrust. This is the main push that brands are actually now facing. A consumer, in specifically in a place like India, was there a community maybe of consumers for using this concept, and this concept has been there since the very beginning. It's called in Hindi we call it jugaad,
Mm.
and this jugaad is basically like the most convenient way out of a situation
Got
to
it.
get something out for done for yourself. So
Hmm.
I mean, this is something which has been spoken about in case studies that in the use of jugaad as a concept, a lot of people were actually able to find answers before brands could because they were physically present in physical stores. They were present digitally on platforms, and of course, there's abundance of information. There's abundance of data. There's abundance of products, and they could easily
Mm.
make their way out of it. Now, brands are currently under the pressure of the pivot,
Mm.
and this is where it's coming in. So when it's about pivoting, it's actually about the fact that brands are now chasing consumers to understand what they're going to do next. If
Yeah.
maybe another lockdown happens,
Yeah.
they're waiting for the next lockdown. They're waiting for anything unexpected to happen, and they're at an alarm stage where they're trying to understand what the consumer could do next because that's where
Mm.
we have to find out stuff. And it's also a fact that when we talk about experiences in terms of the digital side, maybe when we talk
Mm.
about apps or maybe when we talk about the websites, the concept of competition is now changing. And there I would mainly talk about two perspectives. From the first end is how consumers have been interacting with brands maybe in a specific sector. Like for example,
Mm.
talk about a Deliveroo or an Uber Eats or a Zomato per se. Um, it's not just about how the competitor's experience is nowadays. I think it's more drifted towards what was the consumer's last best experience.
Mm.
And this opens a wide conversation beyond your immediate competitor because it's around it's around the whole ecosystem.
Mm.
How a consumer is using a specific brand on his maybe on his phone or maybe on a laptop or maybe an iMac. It's dependent on a lot of factors because it's about how the speed of the website is, how the relevance of the website is, how easy is
Mm.
it to navigate those websites. Now
Mm.
that's a brand plus a digital perspective because
Yeah.
that's where ends have to meet. And when you talk about the brand equity and you talk about brand relevance and affinity, it's all dependent on experience now because it's about
Mm.
what was the consumer's last best experience. If for example a fitness app is trying to build a UI which is similar to another fitness app, it won't be relevant unless it's close to maybe a Deliveroo or an Uber Eats, because
Yeah.
that's where it's easier for a user to convert, or maybe an Amazon actually. So
Mm.
it's like brands have to change their perspective, and that's where again like there's a shift in asking the right question, which is my second part. That are we actually considering the right competitor for our brand? I
Mm.
mean, when you do a benchmarking, when you benchmark your brand against other competitors, it's actually changing the way we see different brands now because um, it's not just about the competition next door. Like, for example, you say, um, if you say a brand like Amazon Prime,
Yeah.
Amazon Prime will not have just Netflix or a similar OTT brand as a competitor. That's not it.
Mm.
A competition nowadays can be defined by another contextual disruptor, which could actually be
Mm.
a gym.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
if you see it from a very humanized or a consumer's perspective, you have to understand the fact that if I use a gym for at least 3 hours a day, my consumption on Netflix might go down because I'm tired, or maybe I have a better lifestyle and I'm spending more time outdoors and maybe I'm losing weight rather than the fact that I would rather binge watch Friends for 6 hours.
Mm,
So it's actually, when you talk about consumption, the conversation is now changing because,
mm,
um, and it's not just the pandemic. It's just that it's just the realization that there is a lot. And
mm.
in terms of when you talk about brand revelations and how the pivot is happening, we are still scratching the surface.
Yeah,
We're still not there. We're still not there. We're still not found answers as to what could be the ideal way to stand out. And
yeah,
it will evolve every second. It will evolve every 6 months. Like I remember the time when we had our first conversation. It was on Clubhouse, and now we are on Instagram Live. And it's just the way how things are, and you the way we see stuff, because it's about our consumption. And
mm,
there's a new conversation around sustainability. Of course, it's not something that's absolutely new. It's been there for years. But when we say sustainable consumption behavior, it's actually now a challenge for brands, even for brands that are starting out right now, to find sustainable alternatives to place themselves or position themselves in front of their customers. And
yeah, yeah,
it's at a standpoint where, um, sustainability could be anything. Sustainability could be how
yeah.
your internal factors are there, how you're growing as a
Your
company.
process,
Exactly.
production, materials. Yeah.
I mean, when we see sustainability, I think a lot of people see it as only from a product or an experience
Or
perspective.
environmental sometimes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's 100%. And before just hold your thought on that, because before we get into sustainability, because that we use that as quite a sort of focus topic. What I just wanted to rewind a bit and just add to what you were saying, and just add on that is, the big part of this is consumerism is completely changed, right? And what it's always evolving. And what you're saying is 100% right. The biggest challenge for brands now is to understand what their consumers want and what they do, the way they behave, how they want it, etc. How do they want it served? When do they want it served? So it's a huge challenge that. And when we look at this from a perspective of, let's even rewind 20 years ago, consumerism was way more predictable. It was so much more predictable. We know that that person is going to go out for that specific entertainment, and most likely they're going to go, because before it was like everyone was in 9 to 5s. Now everyone's digital, like working from home. Everyone's got all flexible hours. There's so many more variables in play now on just on a life basis, on a daily life basis, that affects the way we consume certain things, right?
Yeah,
Compared to before when it was completely predictable. So I just wanted to add on that is consumerism, the behaviors of consumers, is one thing that brands are really trying to crack down. And it's difficult because we're in a time, like you said, businesses and brands are sort of, they're preparing for the next lockdown. How can they predict what that consumer is going to do for that period of when everything changes again? Because at the moment it's really, it really is sort of up in the air. And but brands are investing so much money into, and it's interesting because you've then like, so Facebook ads, for example, right? Facebook ads have done a lot on their iOS 14 update, taking away certain tracking, so taking away certain data sets for people to not be able to track specific behaviors, etc. So using the pixel and stuff. But don't want to get too deep on the tech
yeah.
terms. But
Facebook has gone through a lot already. We see that.
yeah, well, exactly. And is this sort of, transition between, you know where brands sometimes are able to find out, now all of a sudden they can't. Now all of a sudden they have to do other things. So there's always this constant chase for brands. And obviously when we're talking about this, we're particularly the big sort of research and investments, obviously the big brands. But even from a small business perspective, right, understanding what your consumer wants, what they do, how they behave. I work with, like yourself, most probably work with loads of brands, but every brand, whether it has a service or a product, either has cycles or has certain periods where they're very popular, understanding what the customer motivations are behind this sort of thing. So all these things, these consumerism behaviors are so important, and brands are investing, and this, brands are investing a hell of a lot of money into trying to crack this code that I don't think will ever be cracked, because it will just continue evolving. So I just wanted to add that point onto that, man. So
Absolutely, man. That's
yeah.
true. And we actually, you're very right, because we are moving to a phase where, when it comes to privacy, a lot of questions are being asked. And I think
Yeah.
as advertisers, we have had a bit of an impact. If you see the share prices of Facebook and what happened
Mm.
yesterday, it's an
Yeah.
absolute signal that there's difference. And the only thing that I feel as a bridging element, the element that could drive the fact that you know we are able to know our customer more is research. And I think
Hmm.
that's something which um, from where I am right now, I feel it makes the foundation much more stronger, because at this point of time when we rely on data, and you might have a certain amount of limitations in terms of understanding this data that you could before. If you have a right foundation in terms of the research that you do, there are different ways to find answers for certain
Mm.
brands. And there's like in marketing we say always, there's approximation, there's not an absolute figure, right? It's
Yeah.
always like,
Yeah.
in my opinion it's going to be like this, but it actually might be a little different from that. But it's all, we always have that gap, and we always need a foundation that could fix that gap in terms of maybe an approximation or a step closer to that. And
Hmm.
as for how I've seen it, I mean, I'm super keen in terms of understanding the metaverse, and how it's coming up. And I would say, like, I am still scratching the surface in terms of how data is being provided to us, how information is being provided to us. I'm just like going through Instagram posts and feeds, and I'm like, okay, this NFT is doing pretty well, and Justin Bieber bought the Bored Ape. So it's something which is sparking a lot of conversation around these elements that
Mm.
that actually help you understand what could be the factors that could influence a space like this. And as of now, I'm actually thinking of going down deep into understanding what could be the factors that could influence maybe digital marketing or branding in the metaverse. Will the positioning be the same as it is
Mm.
in the physical world? So I mean, there's so much that we have to find out. And when it comes to decentralization of information, it's like you're there, but you're still not there. So you need another foundation to back that up, and maybe a side of a foundational side in terms of having research or having different opinions on this, which are peer reviewed, or maybe which have been looked upon by a lot of people and validated them. It's a way to go around this, because I
Yeah.
feel it makes a person more confident in the long run. And that's
Mm.
what I actually started off exploring while I was at the Future Pro Group, because that's where a lot of conversation that Christo was doing, I think it was something which was backed by some form of theory or some form of um, maybe someone's opinion that could actually influence a lot of businesses. So
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
think that's it. That's one thing I feel is one point we need to look at. I mean, in the future.
Definitely, man. I think one last thing before we get to sustainable brands and talking a bit more about that. But this is a perfect example. The whole metaverse, Web 3.0, the next sort of technologies that we know that are coming out, the blockchain, decentralizing of data, and the whole decentralized network. Really, again, is going to pose even more bigger problems, or obstacles, should I say, rather than problems for brands, right? On how they're engaging, on how they're marketing, because as like you said, we're simply scratching the surface of these sort of technologies. But as we start shifting, and that shift is inevitable, it's already happening, especially the blockchain technologies, right? I mean, obviously, for these sort of words are too big for some of the people here, but you almost already find, like, just how the internet was 20, 30 years ago, like, nobody knew. We'll soon know what the blockchain technologies are, but like, as brands will have these obstacles to face. And I want to sort of reiterate here, the reason why I wanted to bring you on is because, like, with what you're doing at the moment, especially with your title of the hybrid digital marketer, you're on the forefront of understanding all these different things that could be done. Because again, where brands sort of, well, not brands end, but where brands start needing the help of marketing is when these two things start working together and start to say, hey, okay, what is in it for both of us in this future? We don't know exactly what it is going to be, but we are
Yeah.
starting to sort of spot these sort of traits. And in the first thing that brands are going to do is they're going to want to understand what their consumers are doing. And the second thing, which we'll get onto, which is a big part of it in terms of, like, one of the revelations, is definitely sustainability. But yeah, so before we move on to stay, like, brand and sustainable brands, is there anything else that you wanted to add to that before we move on to that?
Yeah, I mean, it's like you know the whole ecosystem how it's working right now. I mean,
Yeah.
it's something which is with some
Moving,
like I
moving
yeah.
man.
It's a sense of discovery for all of us every day. I mean, it's um
Yeah.
you never know what might happen in the next 6 months, because I think
Mm.
if we have another IG live session in the next 6 months, the conversation might be entirely different from what it is right now.
Yeah.
So it's something which brings a lot of questions around this thing. And I think as for all the people who wish to explore this end, this is my one point. I think is something which I heard from one of my lectures in Kings, and at Kings, that actually it kind of struck my mind, and I just keep saying this again and again. Ask the right questions.
Mm.
Brand, if you're a company, or if you're a strategist, start asking the right questions. Maybe not to others, but yourself first. And if you can do that, I mean, that's where your conversations will start changing with people. And I think that's what happened with you and me. That's what's been happening with around everyone that have been associated with while I'm in London. So it's
Mm.
something which has changed the narrative altogether. And if we see digital marketing as a study or maybe as a phenomenon, it's something that will change the way you look at it, because you want to know more. And I think that's where things start getting better. Your results in terms of your executions or maybe your campaigns will start getting better, because if you start asking yourself the right questions, uh, brand relevance will change for you first,
Mm.
as a consumer of that information, because the first person who consumes the information is you, because you're the creator of that thing, right?
Yeah.
So it's something which you have to find out before you communicate that message. That are you asking yourself the right questions, and what you are putting down as your execution, is it the right answer, or maybe does it follow the right foundations of the right answer? So
Mm.
it's something that you have to, tackle along with time and with all the contextual disruptors, so that you stay in the right path at the right point at the right time, and to the right individual, of course.
Mm. Mm. Yeah. No, awesome, man. No, like, you see, like the one thing I love these lives, like selfishly for me, is I learn so much. So
Oh, you
honestly, I
got
just
it, buddy.
I'm getting
No
free
worries,
lectures
bro.
here, mate. I'm getting free lectures from a King student, so I'm not complaining. No, cool. So obviously the next thing that we've been talking about this for quite a few times is sustainability, and obviously you started touching on it, and there is a lot, obviously when you say that word sustainability, there is a lot that can come to like people's minds when you say that term. And I think a lot of it does depend on what their experience is with things like sustainability. So for me, before I really started to give you sort of a quick backstory, my business is now pivoting. We did a pivot this year to now starting to work with positive impact, sustainable brands, essentially. Businesses and or brands more specifically, that are focusing on not something more than profit, right? They're focusing on the planet, the people, and they've got a bigger sort of mission. And their whole brand drive is not just about making money, basically, about doing things that are positive for the environment, for people, for culture, for all sorts of stuff. And this is where your definition of sustainability, depending on your experiences, may lie, basically. But we're talking about a lot of things in a sort of very broad, short term, that a lot of companies, a lot of brands, a lot of individuals, we, like, us as individuals, can be more sustainable, right? Brands can be more sustainable, companies can be more sustainable, organizations, whatever it is, can be more sustainable. But that definition is very sort of, it means different things for different people. But what I wanted to focus a bit more on is, like, now, obviously, I don't want to say it's becoming like a hot trend where people are trying to sort of profit off of it, because that's not the companies or brands that I want to focus on. But obviously there are people like that, and there are brands and businesses out there that will just jump on this bandwagon. And there's a lot of greenwashing in this industry, and you've seen that, I've seen that. But for the actual brands that genuinely want to make impact, genuinely are, caring about, having less carbon footprint,
changing their products and packaging if they're a products company, ethically sourcing or even ethical hiring, right? That comes as part of the whole process because it's a whole ecosystem. Um, Payments, ethical pays and stuff like that, and fair trade and fair pay. So what I wanted to really lead into is you've obviously seen this from a perspective of research as well, and a perspective of working with brands and also studying this, that this is a major, conversation right now in the industry for brands. But why is it like you said, sustainability has been around for such a long time, but why is it only now in 2022 that this whole topic, and maybe like last year and the year before, and to be honest, COVID has spurred a lot of this on, and we've seen a lot of movement in the sustainability sector during COVID. But why is it taken to this moment to sort of realize that, oh, this is the way brands need to sort of head, and this is where we need to go? And what are those? Are there any insights on those reasons as to why we've all of a sudden had this as a spark of interest? Great to get your thoughts on that.
Absolutely. I mean, it's so good that you asked that. I mean, I love it. So okay,
Good.
I would say from a personal experience, I have had been involved in a sustainability project. It's called Sustainer, previously known as Econet, was functioning in
Okay.
India. And my dear friend, we worked on this for a couple of months now, and the I've actually been exposed to this concept of sustainability very recently. I've heard about it myself. Like you said, I have
Hmm.
been a person or maybe a consumer of that information very recently. I mean, it would be like just months.
Yeah.
And why that happened is because of, well, as you rightly mentioned, COVID. In my opinion, I think the flow of information that happened over I think the last 2 years was massive. I think a lot of people had time to explore brands more than they had in the
Hmm.
past, because as you and I see, I think times have changed. We have started going to our offices. I've started going to my campus, and before a little bit time before that, it was not the same, because it was something which was, you were at home, you were with your family, you were usually spending time on the internet, and you could see so much. Now when conversations of sustainability began to happen, it's something which makes it more audible for people to understand the fact that this is there, and this is what brands also realized when this information was spreading. I think sustainability became contagious as well when COVID
Hmm.
was also there. So it's something which brands started to incorporate, and we are at this point now where every brand wants to know how they could be sustainable in nature. So it's something which is gradually you start over time. I mean, when it comes to this term, it's like brands are still hanging around at the point where they're calling themselves sustainable and they're adding sustainability to their positioning. But are they really
Hmm.
sustainable? That's a big question. Because I actually had this encounter with a brand which in London, they said that they were sustainable, but when we did their positioning study and everything, we found out that the fact that the brand was not sustainable. There were certain elements that were missing. So
Hmm.
it comes to the point of brand affinity and trust, because that's a very delicate area for brands that are sustainable. I mean,
Yeah.
you want to go sustainable at this point of time, but is it the fact that you really are sustainable, or are you trying to be sustainable?
Try.
That's
Yeah.
again
Big
that's the
difference. Yeah.
asking the right question, because
Hmm.
it's like it's at this point, if brands say that they're sustainable, they're prone to a lot of backlash. And
Hmm.
even though their intention might not to be to greenwash individuals, they
Hmm.
might unintentionally do that because they're trying to say that we are a sustainable brand. So I think when you as you rightly mentioned, sustainability has a definition which brands cannot incorporate completely as of now,
Yeah.
unless they're certified, or unless
Yeah.
they have a backing that proves their foundation to be sustainable. That's something
Hmm.
which is becoming a problem for a lot of brands now. And as smaller players start becoming more sustainable, it poses a risk to all the players in the market that are also communicating the same message, but the perception of the same is not really happening. So
Hmm.
there's this big gap. There's this, when you say sustainability, I feel in terms of revelations, it's something which is, every brand wants to be sustainable, but is it really that you want to be sustainable, or you want to start your journey of it? and then you want to include your consumer in the whole journey. I think that's a safer bet, because you may not be sustainable. That doesn't mean that you're wrong. You might be at a spot where you have had associations with brands for years. But if you're trying to be sustainable, include your customer as a part of the journey. Make your positioning in such a way that you're able to show your customers your journey. And and since we are at this point of time where the consumption of information is so massive in terms of the data that we see, you refer to Hootsuite reports, you refer to the changes in consumption of the Statista. It's just very different to how it was. I think this is the ideal opportunity for brands to include their customers as a part of the branding process. Because this is the ideal opportunity that brands can get to put out the message that you are with us while we become more sustainable. I think that's something that's there, and it's not something I would feel that is a wrong notion. It's not that your brands will start to have more perceptions about you. It's creating more affinity. It's creating more empathy. And while I discussed this, there's this thing that I actually came across, which was there's this agency called Interbrand, and they have these awards where they have awards for advertisements. A very globally recognized agency, and it's based out of New York. And they have this methodology to compute a brand value. And it was something that, it enticed me. It was like, okay, I need to know this, because when we talk about sustainability or similar elements, it's something that has to be calculated, that there needs to be a method where you can maybe, qualitatively or quantitatively measure this. And there's this thing called the brand value methodology by Interbrand. I'm actually going to share the link on the IGTV, IG Live session as well. And it actually comprises of 3 components. And that's where it's about more than how we see creativity, how we see digital marketing. It's actually more than that. So as for now, what I know is basically it's a financial forecast, which is the overall return on investment that you give to your stakeholders after tax in the financial year, inclusive of the fact that there's what's the role of the brand. So basically, we're measuring the effectiveness of the brand apart from the product, the features, the experience. It's more than that. We're like how we, if you remember the brand gap, and you remember the market cap of Coca-Cola without the brand name and with the brand name, one of the first pages of the book. It's actually the role of the brand and how it influences the brand value, and it's also the brand strength, which could be in terms of external factors like distinctiveness, participant, coherence, and maybe internal factors like direction, empathy, alignment, and agility. Like there's so many sides and factors that have that can be taken as variables and can actually create a hypothesis to understand its relevance with brand value, and how it can influence brand value. And that can be positive and negative based on what circumstances are there. And now when we talk about sustainability, it's like, I mean, when we look at, I'll actually share the link just right now in a couple of minutes, but if you go on Google and search Interbrand Top 100 Brands, the first 20 brands that you see, most of them are tech brands. They are like Google, Microsoft, and they've had like their brand value is growing by percentages every year, and it's very different. And all of the brands that you see have a sustainable narrative, though they're big brands, but they still have a sustainable narrative because they are at the spot where they want people to know their initiatives, and it's not just their initiatives. It's the fact that how important it is for a consumer to actually incorporate the brand into their lives because it makes them sustainable. Because it's easier for you and me. It's easier to to engage with a brand that's absolutely sustainable, or maybe it's towards sustainability, because it makes you feel like a better person, and your affinity to the brand increases. So it's just that fact that it's an overall measure of perception. It's an overall measure to understand the value that is influenced in terms of sustainability when you incorporate in a brand, and that could make it or that could break it. It's at that point of time, and brands have to be very careful with that. Rather make a safe play on that rather than saying that you're absolutely sustainable. Say that you're trying to be sustainable.
That's it.
That's a
100%. That's sorry to cut you off there, but I just wanted to like add there. That is a absolute 100%. So the company that we're currently working with, when we went through their positioning and tone of voice and their messaging, what they're coming across as is the business is constantly or is always striving to become a more sustainable business, right? We're constantly investing, and then you get an explanation of that. We're constantly investing in ways of making our process, our products, our sources, everything as much as possible as sustainable. I think the issue is when companies come out and, like you said, slap that sort of statement on that we are sustainable. But if you look into them, that's when the issue happens. But the big thing that ties into this, right, is, and what is so important for brands today in this competitive environment, is brand loyalty, right? How loyal are your customers, your clients that are coming to you to come to you again and again and again? How loyal are they feeling? And part of this is going to, well, not part of this, a lot of brand loyalty is going to be impacted upon if companies decide to go towards the sustainable methods or not. And I firmly believe, give it 5 years when, we're already seeing things like energy crisis, right, happening in the UK, right? We've got energy bills rising up to 60-70% in the UK, which is absolutely insane. For some people, some people are like just about can pay their bills, so they're already on the breaking threshold to that. And these are all issues that we've got in our energy and all sorts of stuff, but where if we look towards sustainability, even if we make their small impacts, it makes a huge difference. So that starts becoming a massive part of people's lives. And this is sad, but when people are pushed to the edge, then they realize that actually sustainability is a massive thing, because now people are realizing that they have to pay 60-70% more on their bills, and they don't have that money. A lot of people don't have that. Forget people, but businesses don't have that money. Imagine you saying to a business, your electric cost and your is going to rise up to 60%. A lot of that's like employees cutting out of the business. That's another sort of downfall. So sometimes, in our world, things have to be pushed right to the. COVID was a prime example of that. Hospitals should have been prepared with PPE. They should have had all these sort of. We were. Not we were ready, but we should have been ready for a mass pandemic, right? And that is something that every hospital, hopefully, or every medical association now has learned, that we need to be ready for if a next pandemic hits, with the materials, with supplies, with oxygen, whatever it is, basically. But it's not until it happens do we sort of realize that, oh shit, we need to do this. And this is why I think this live is absolutely valuable, because these revelations are the things that you, as a small brand, as a big brand, as a medium-sized brand, whatever kind of brand you are, you can start preparing on how your brand starts to fit in with what is happening in the future, with these trends, these market trends that are changing. And look, this is why I wanted to bring you in, Aditya, is because, again, you are on the forefront of understanding these things, of seeing these things happen as they are. So it's not, we're just sort of getting these ideas, and it's not that, everyone knows the energy bills are rising. So these things are happening. So us as brand strategists, brand experts, and marketing experts and stuff, what are we doing to help not only share that message, but also to prepare us individually for our businesses or whatever it is that we're doing, in order to be ready for those changes, basically, or better, start making those changes now rather than just trying to be ready for them, basically. So yeah, again, just wanted to add that in there, man. So 100% with you. It's not just about slapping that name on. No one is 100% sustainable. And some big brands, Nike, have also, I think they've got a promise to 2025 to using more going 100%, like not 100% sustainable. I don't know what their promise is, but it's along the lines of sustainability. Procter & Gamble have also massive big firm producers, have also got a promise. So these big companies, well, obviously they've got the money to be able to do that. So there are elements of which they can make sustainable, but at the same time, that does not make that brand or business sustainable. It means you're working towards sustainability, but regardless, right? Just want to underline this, that even if you take a few steps towards sustainability, it makes, if everybody takes a few steps, makes changes and a few changes in their business, or even forget business and brand, in your life, right? it makes a massive difference, huge difference. And that impact, I just don't want it to get to a point where we're sort of at these sort of same ends of COVID was, right? Where we're like, shit, now it's happened. I
Yeah.
mean, we saw that, but yeah, no, just wanted to add that in there as well, man.
Absolutely. And Kiki, I think comes to the same point again. Uh, Brands have to start asking the right questions and giving the right answers to people. And
Exactly.
there's this point where they have to realize that their customers are smart. Their customers
Yeah.
are bloody smart. I mean, it's
They know
like
more than they think they do.
yeah, because if you are on an online platform and you're talking about sustainability, and as a
Mm.
brand, you answer one point that might raise questions, hell's gonna fall. I mean, it's gonna be there because you have to be ready with the crisis right away, and it's
Yeah.
it's this thing sustainability comes with a lot of questions. So you need to have a crisis management plan ready. You need to have communication stable because um, yeah, people want to know, and when they know, they're gonna ask, and when they
Mm.
ask, that's where you want to tell them to ask the right questions because you know that you're asking yourself the right questions then when you talk about sustainability and you manage it well. So it's a strategic process, but at the
Yeah.
same time it's something that's going to give brands a lot of leverage. And of course, I as we just spoke, the consumption is increasing and factors are increasing that will determine how sustainable you are in the eyes of people. So it's going to
Mm.
change in every time. So it's just something that we're all waiting for, and I think it's just
Yeah.
that when we evolve with this, you're there, you're at the right spot where you're asking the right questions.
Mm. Mm. Love that. Biggest gem of today. Ask the right questions, man. Honestly,
Right on,
it's
man.
100%, and Chris, like when we started in the pro group, Christo like drilled this in. Like obviously his was ask like how direct are you with your questions? How good is your question, basically? So like questions are a massive powerhouse, right? And on that note, if anybody does have any, please drop them below, and we'll obviously answer them if anybody does have any questions. But that's really insightful. Like, it's amazing having your insights. It really is. So thank you for that. I wanted to ask. I've got another question in here as well. What I wanted to ask is, so now we've spoken about two big things, consumerism and sustainability, some of the big and a lot more as well, man. There's a lot that we've spoken about here in terms of brand revelations. What I wanted to know is, what is the future for Aditya? Where are you heading, and what's your sort of plans? So I want to know that, and where do you see yourself amongst all of this?
Well, that's I think good to know that question. I mean, that's a good question, I would say. So yeah, I mean, I'm looking for now newer opportunities to explore the new side of hybrid digital marketing, and
Mm,
and specifically, I'm looking at working with brands that actually help me understand what's coming up in terms of their perspective, and be a part of
mm,
their journey and exploring how things are. um, I'm already conversing with brands on a very daily basis, and of course, we are having so many conversations ourselves. It's something that drives me in terms of how the UK market is functioning, in terms of how different it is from India, and how diverse this is. And I think UK is for I think a global perspective, a global hub in itself for understanding how brands are, and how digital marketing could work for them.
mm.
There's a plethora of opportunities out there. So I think I'm open to a lot of stuff right now. And I think once my master's is complete, I think I'll be on a quest. I'll be on a quest to discover more. And it's I think it's a process that I love to be a part of. So
Yeah.
yeah, just exploring, and I'll continue to explore. That's it.
Nice, man. That's really good. And I know obviously that you're in your final year, right?
Oh yeah, it's like a 1 year.
Yeah, for
So
1 year.
oh,
Sorry,
anyway,
master.
the final year.
Oh, yeah, masters. So I know that you're also looking to explore into this whole obviously NFT, the metaverse space as well. Is there anything that you plan to do in that sort of way? It'll be interesting to know.
Oh yeah. So I mean, NFTs have been catching my eye for a while now, and I think 2 3 days back I designed my own punk NFTs. So I was like, oh, that's cool.
Nice.
Because you see those notifications on Instagram, and of course you need to know how to design. So you're like, okay, let's give that a shot. So
Yeah.
I
See
mean,
how it goes.
it's something that I've been enjoying for the last couple of days. I think I've been
Mm.
having conversations around this, and yeah, I'm engaging with my faculty. I'm engaging with people at King's to know more about this. So maybe I think on my Instagram there might be stuff that I'll be putting around, and if you guys want to check that out, you can visit my Instagram. So that's right there.
Cool. No, that's wicked. I mean, it's an interesting world again. Like, even with the whole crypto space, you know, we're at a stage that, you know, it does. I mean, it's a very sort of topical or argumentative question, but like even the whole this tech that we're at, it takes a lot of energy, a lot of consumption. There's a long way for it to go. Still, like
Exactly.
scratching the surface on these kind of things, man. But that's really, really interesting, man. Really, really interesting. So, I want to thank you for your time. Really, really
Thanks,
appreciate it.
Kiki.
It's
That was
been
it was like I love this. I love what you do, man. I mean, I'm a fan. So
appreciate that, man. Appreciate that. No,
and it's
that's
so happy you call me over. I'm actually I'm super happy today. I'm gonna have a good evening, and once you share this on IGTV, I'm gonna look at this every day. I'm gonna be like, okay, I said that.
well, there's definitely. I'm gonna be snipping this up, so I'll send you the video anyway, of course. But there's loads of gems in this, man. So it's gonna do wonders for my feed, and I'm sure it'll do the same for yours as well, man, for sure. Um, the one thing that I was gonna ask, and I think this is more from my like sort of personal perspective, you know, like I mentioned to you, our agency is doing that pivot this year, or if not, has already done that pivot to starting to work with more positive impact brands. Basically, is there any tips or advice again on the notes of sustainability that you would say from an agency's perspective that we should be conscious of, or yeah, any advice basically on that front, basically for anyone that wants to work with sustainable brands?
Awesome. I think in this case, what I would rather suggest for any agency to do
Mm,
is focus on something which I completely, I think I rely on this a lot, and this term is something which is very important to me. Inclusion. Inclusion is
mm,
something which is it is one really good aspect, and I think visibility and ensuring that you are able to include your audience as a part of your journey is something which changes the narrative for a lot of agencies on, and I think it's something it's been a gap for a while in the whole space. I've seen that in India. I've seen it in here as well. I feel inclusion can be like a strong powerhouse for agencies to
mm,
mainly help brands understand what it means to be sustainable, because it's something, if you are offering as a service to your own self, and you're incorporating as a part of your own identity, and as a part of your own whole vision, it's something that helps you connect with people who might have this question later on, or might have this right now, because it helps ends meet, and it helps in understanding that this is required and somebody knows this. So for
mm,
an agency level, it's something that connects the dots immediately, because that these people have been involved with this, and I have not seen. I mean, it's a very good question that you ask, because I've not seen that a lot with agencies
mm,
nowadays, and I think it's a point where it can be a first mover advantage for a lot of agencies to do this.
mm.
And if that happens, I think it's a blue ocean strategy, if I would say from my perspective. So I think inclusion is one great point that I would feel is part of growth when it comes to sustainability, because they need to be with you while you grow in terms of this area, and it can do wonders. That's what I feel. I mean, that's my opinion. Thanks.
Got it, man. Definitely. We'll work on that. Thank you for that. I appreciate that, man. Look, it's been great, and I'm sure if I can convince you another time to do another one, and there's so much value that you've given here. So really, really massive thank you to you, man. It's super, super, super good to have someone that's experienced, that's got these expertise and knowledge to come and share them. And yeah, thank you so much, man. But yeah, any last things from yourself? If not, we'll call it a wrap.
Yeah, I'll probably, I don't want to say this again because it might sound a lot of repetitive, but yeah,
Say it.
just
Say it.
I'll say it. Okay, cool. So I'll say, ask the right questions, people.
There we go.
If you do that, fix a lot of things within yourself before you go to brands and you work on your own brand. And if you
Yeah.
ask the right questions, that's going to make a big change as to how you see your next step. And yeah, I mean, just go faster than your consumer. That's it. Just try to go faster than your
Very
consumer.
There we go. Awesome, man. Look, this has been fantastic. We've spoken about, first of all, we got to know Ditya. We've spoken about the brand revelations that we wanted to talk about. And the big highlight is ask the right questions. That's what is going to get you far. The power of question is absolutely, it's undeniably the biggest thing. So we need to be questioning, building brands, building businesses, learning about marketing, whatever it is, these expertise that we're talking about more specifically, but any walk of life, questions are extremely powerful. Always be the person to be asking, even if you think you know stuff, right? Ask people's opinions, right? Even if you're a brand designer watching this, you're a creative and you've done 500, 600 logos, even ask a question to someone who's done 50 of them, because you never know what you pick up and learn. But the power of them is again, undoubtedly one of the biggest things. So thank you so much, Ditya, for your gems.
Thanks,
Really, really
Kiki.
appreciate
Thanks,
it.
brother. It's
You're
always a pleasure
welcome.
to be with you.
Definitely, man. And we'll definitely catch up soon as well. We'll go for a coffee or a lunch again. So that'll be cool. And we
Yep,
always got loads to talk about. So that's all good.
absolutely. Looking forward, buddy. All right.
Cool. Sounds good. Well, you enjoy your weekend, and bye to everyone. Thank you so much for joining, and we'll catch you on another live soon. Take
Cheers,
care.
mate. All right. See you.